Hello and welcome to 60 Minutes or Less, a podcast from Birthday Cake for Breakfast. I'm Andy Hughes, and for episode 46, we're buzzed to welcome the master of puppets herself, Blair Tramel of Snooper. Much like their sugar rush blend of hyper egg punk, this intro will be swift as we really got into it deep with Blair, and I don't want you to miss a minute. In October 2025, Snooper put out their second album, Worldwide. Hear all about it in our bumper chat with Blair. If you like the episode, let us know. Follow us on your favourite streaming platform and follow Birthday Cake for Breakfast on all the socials. Give us a rating, drop us a comment, tell all your friends, etc. Right, on to Blair. Enjoy. Similar to Chat Pile in
Yeah,
Oklahoma, they seem to just be out there by themselves doing their own thing. I appreciate
yeah.
there is a scene out there, but is it similar in Nashville?
It's like, I mean, it's definitely more of like a city than where Chat Pile's from, but still, I mean, it can be so dependent on the kids in Nashville. I feel like there's like a lot of younger kids that will start bands and then they move other places, so it can be hard, but there's a really good tight-knit DIY community. I mean, I think the South is so politically fucked up with a lot of things that there is such a strong DIY and like art scene in that way. Like there's a lot of abortion benefit fundraiser shows and things that like tie into local political things, I guess. And that can be really cool. Like being from LA, I think you have a lot of people in LA. I've lived in Nashville for a long time, but I grew up primarily in LA, and like people in LA are so politically on the right side of things and like really try to be conscious about things. I'm like, you have no idea. Just come to like Tennessee or like anywhere in the South is just pretty bizarre in that way.
Do you
But
think that's been pretty good for you to learn that? Because I suppose you get bubbles and echo chambers, don't you, if you're in one spot that's pretty progressive?
totally. People are on, the right side of things in LA and like in in New York, wherever, but really on their day to day, they're not as affected by the things like the South. I've been a public school teacher and a not public school teacher, but I've been a teacher for 10 years in Tennessee, and it's crazy. Just being with real people every day in a public school system, like you really start to realize the things that people talk about on the news and stuff. You're like, oh, wait, this really affects people in the South way more than it does in other places. Even like the Midwest and stuff has some of that, but like the South has just been so behind with social issues for so long that you can feel it for sure.
So you mentioned being a teacher
Yeah.
and doing this side in animation and art and stuff.
Yeah.
Is that still your bread and butter alongside Snooper?
Funny enough, I've never taught art. I've actually always taught reading, or like specifically reading is my passion, specifically being in the South. There's a big literacy crisis here. Education is very different across the whole, United States. And so the South in particular has a lot of problems around public education in particular. So I was really passionate. I had such a good experience as a student when I was growing up. I felt that school provided me with so many, it was a social outlet. It was just such a positive experience. And I went to public school myself. So I've worked in schools in different capacities for the past 10 years. And then last year, Snooper started doing, more tours, getting bigger support offers for things. And it was just so impossible for me to balance school and touring. So as of last year, I kind of switched more full time into doing the band, but I do a lot of private tutoring and things like that still, and a lot of outreach in that way within the community. But teaching reading specifically is awesome. It's like one of the biggest joys of my life. I love it.
Is it something that you kind of just take for granted? Again, I imagine coming from LA to where you are now, I
Yeah.
suppose that sort of thing you just take for granted that literacy and such is just, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I feel so passionate about it because it's like for me, the first time you probably can't remember who taught you how to read, but someone did at some point, and like it's such a gradual thing that you are learning to read without really realizing that you're having to actively absorb this information. And I think that like reading is the first thing that kind of gives a kid confidence in a setting outside of their home. And like I can, think of students that I've had that have struggled with reading and they start to kind of hide or not feel like they're up to par with their peers. And I feel as though if you can really set up a kid to be successful with reading early on, it's so huge for their confidence. And like, it's just not something that you really think about a ton until I've worked in middle schools and high schools in the South and, around here where people literally are in eighth grade or high school and they don't know how to read, or they've just been so amazing that they're so smart in other ways that they've learned how to like hide this fact from people that they can't read by memorizing or finding ways around it. And I just feel that like if you can set someone up with that, it's so exciting to see where they can go with just this one simple thing that I feel like, especially adult literacy, it's a whole different ball game, but you can still teach an adult how to read if you can break down the walls of them feeling embarrassed or whatever and kind of go back to that childlike fun part of learning. So,
Do you find as well, because that sounds like with what you're doing, private tutoring and stuff like
yeah.
that, even though it's great, congratulations that Snooper is now a thing where, because you never seem to not be on tour,
Yeah.
but does it seem like quite rewarding still to be able to do that on the side? I mean, I know obviously there's financial, but you seem very high on what you're doing in
Yeah.
the teaching.
Totally. Well, it's been fun. Most recently, I've been connecting with some artists that have been involved in the Snooper world in some sort of way or another. And I've been trying to get people to help me make some children books, like early phonetic reading books, which has been really fun. Because I do think that there's not a lot out there for kids. And I don't know. I think the art part of Snooper has been so crazy and fun that I'm like, maybe I could combine those two. So that's kind of the next step, possibly. Yeah, but
I
it's been really fun to private tutor as well. And like I have some specific students that I've worked with in the past that now have hired me to just kind of come in and be an additional support for that reading outside of the classroom. And it's been awesome.
I'm envisioning like a Snooper pop-up book.
Yeah.
And like, like when you see like with the Snooper merch, you've got those tees that like, almost cut off at the midriff and stuff like that. I think if you put like pop-up books or even just kids' books
Yeah.
on the merch, that would like,
Yeah. Yeah, well, and
yeah.
it's funny because I've always really wanted to keep Snooper really separate from other things. Like originally, I have always made these paper mache heads and paper mache pieces because I used to think it was really funny when my friends would come over to make them wear them, and then I would get to take pictures and we'd make like videos and stuff, and I thought it was so funny. And then when the band started, the majority of people that we were playing with were like my partner who does the music for the band has done nothing but punk, hardcore bands, like faster bands. He's in like, some other genres here and there, but that's kind of been his main thing. So I always felt like, okay, we're going to play really fast. Obviously, Snooper plays fast. The songs are fast. Everything about it is like intense. And then I never really wanted to bring in any sort of my paper mache or like my art into that. I really wanted it to be its own thing. And I can remember the first show we brought out a puppet. Actually, my partner was like, "Do it. Let's like it'll be great." And I was so insecure about it because I felt that like if people in this like sort of at the time hardcore scene or whatever didn't like my art or thought it was goofy or whatever, I was going to be so bummed out. And I remember when we first brought it out, it was now I have these big puppet backpacks that we've made that elevate the heads into the crowd. It's like a whole thing, but the first thing we brought out was just a paper mache head. You couldn't see in it, and it was our friend's birthday. So he was wasted and he was going crazy in the crowd with this puppet head on. And people were like putting it on TikTok. They thought it was so funny. And then after that, I was like, okay, we can do this, but we need to like build a proper like device to bring the puppet out and whatnot. And it's really been crazy how it's evolved because I never wanted sort of like the education part, the kid part of me to kind of come into this realm, but the way that it has been so organic and like fun. And it's kind of this fun thing to look at humanity and be like, wait, we all just really like to have a good time and like we like to have fun. So I thought, I don't know, I was just like, it's not tough. It's not like cool. And I didn't want it to be. Have you seen the video Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared?
Oh
Do you know?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
like
British thing, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, and I felt like I didn't want to be pigeonholed in this thing where it was like, oh, the Snooper's great, and then they have this like weird cartoonish art, but I feel like it's all kind of worked out in this nice way. So,
It's so interesting to hear you say that because that seems so much the identity of Snooper, you know.
yeah.
I read a thing that you said where, I mean, the full quote was that, working with kids isn't so different to trying to get a room full of dudes with
Yeah.
black flag tattoos to lighten up. But do you think that the scene of like blokes stood there with their arms crossed, waiting for someone to impress them, do you think that like there are so many crowds that take it too seriously sometimes? And do you think that you've ever had to work against that in Snooper?
It's interesting. That was definitely my biggest fear at first is that people were going to be really just like, what is this? What's going on? Snooper in general is really big into like mixed genre bills. And so originally when we started the band, we loved playing with like rappers and in hardcore and like punk bands, but like anything that felt like it would match our energy was just like, all right, let's go. So the first show we played with like the big green puppet, we had some rappers on the bill and it was just like a really good vibe. And we brought the puppet out and I have like a picture from that day and everyone's face was like, oh my God. And we're like, it's one of my favorite pictures ever because it was so unexpected. And I think there's like a shock element to it where I want to like continue to harness that like first time we brought it out because I don't want people to feel like it's like a gimmick or anything, but it is just genuinely fun to dance with a giant puppet in a sort of mosh pit environment. Like I've had some hardcore guys be like, Snooper's goofy or whatever, like every once in a while. And then they immediately like they're the same type of people that will come to the shows. Like I have seen and I'll like heckle them sort of. I'm like, hey, so you're at the show, you want to get in the puppet? Do you want to wear it tonight? And they'll be like, no, 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 no. But like it's kind of unavoidable. You kind of just have to have a good time when like this giant green bug is dancing around you. So some of my favorite pictures from the crowd too are like people like hardstyle, like moshing and the bug's right there. I'm like, yes. But I think it came from, this feeling of I've been to so many shows in my life, like especially before COVID. There was one show in particular, I'm not going to tell you what band it was, but it was one of my favorite bands on recording. I brought like all my girlfriends out and like really excited to see this band, and they were so boring live. Part of it too is like it was like everyone was plainly dressed. No one was looking up from their instruments. Like no one was really moving around. And that to me is like bare minimum. Like I want to see like I don't know. I want to feel like we're in the room together, right? Like it's not just you playing, licking your instrument and then the crowd just watching. Like I want to feel like I think that's the thing with punk shows too. Like the energy of the performers is usually like engaging enough. But that show in particular, I remember talking to Connor, my partner, and being like, if we ever start a band, like it's gonna be awesome. Like the crowd's gonna feel into it. And that was just the way that I felt like we had accessible to us at the time to be like, yeah, we have these crazy paper mache heads. Let's just throw them on and see if people respond to it. But yeah.
Can you imagine what it would have been like if you'd done that show with the paper mache head and stuff, and everyone was just like, nah, that's
Yeah, I don't know how. In fact, that was like my worst fear. So we started out just super small and it was so exciting. Actually, the first time we took the puppet out, it was a house show in Charlotte. And our bassist at the time, he walked in and it was like rowdy. And he got clocked right in the jaw by this giant hardcore dude. And he was like, all right, I'm out. I'm standing outside. I'm gonna watch out here. And that was the show we brought the puppet out for. And it was just like the energy matched, I guess. It was the puppet was thrown around because you can't see when you're in the puppet outfits. So it's become like this whole thing. I actually just bought a face shield yesterday because we're about to go on tour. And it's usually me, the person that suits up in the puppet, and I'll come out because I know how to do it and whatnot. But yeah, it's hilarious having to be in there and not being able to see. And I think that adds to it because the puppet's just like all over the place.
it's like a very gangly, like, yeah.
Yeah.
I do like as well that there's just props that aren't even part of the show. They're just there, like, Pee-wee's Playhouse or
Yeah.
something. Is there anything that you've envisioned? Because obviously you are doing these bigger shows now. Is there anything you've envisioned that you want to create in that sort of universe?
I really want to do more video stuff. Like the paper mache stuff all came out of me doing a lot of animation and video work. And I particularly really like stop motion. So when I started doing the masks originally, I was like, it would be so fun. We're filming a stop motion thing to have someone be in an animated sort of looking head. But video stuff is kind of my first love, my first way that I got involved in music. I used to do like a lot of music videos for people or video flyers and things like that. So I would love to be able to figure out how to like do more kind of like analog video stuff on stage. I had this idea for this tour of building these like, so I have these big amps right here that I build. It's just like cardboard, but they're folded up. And so I've been getting these giant boxes and I wanted to make them look almost like skyscraper kind of, and then cut out holes for individual video screens and have them like come on at different times. That's just like it's you got to get to a venue so early and then this if you're a support band, the other band's like, God damn it, get off stage. So it would be a lot of setting up. I was really inspired by the band. Have you heard of Ginger Root?
No, don't think so.
They're a band and they're from LA. The guy who does the project, he is also like I think he makes like movies. He's incredible. And you should look him up because his live set, the music's great on its own, but he does this like live news broadcasting thing that he has playing throughout the show. And then he has like a cameraman that's like recording it live and it is the most insane live show I've ever seen. It's so engaging, so awesome. And I was asking like what time he had to get to the venue to set up all day. Like it's like a all day thing with all the video stuff, but I would love to incorporate more of that or like even have like a video element of like I don't know if you've seen Devo's shows, but like we saw Devo recently and they were filming on stage was happening like as if they were recording backstage. So they were like running around backstage and whatnot. And I was thinking it would be so fun to do like a whole backstage like video thing of the bug back there, like getting ready or like freaking out and like incorporating that more into the live show would be sick.
We saw a band recently and it was like the top floor of this pub. They must have had like 20 like old TVs just like
Yeah.
scattered around. And it looked cool, but now
Yeah.
just hearing you say that, the
It's
loading must be a
crazy.
nightmare anyway, but to figure
Yeah.
out SCART leads and plugs and stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
that's I think why bands don't do it. Like, I think so many bands don't want to carry the extra stuff. I mean, right now for our live setup, we have these, amps, but they fold. I was really lucky to get these boxes. And then inside of the boxes, I put my own lighting setup and I have this trigger thing that I set up that I control. And then we have this like stoplight down there that also has lights. And then we've brought the phone and the video game. I have like this video game over there. And it's a nightmare. Like it's really hard to travel with all this stuff because it's big, it takes up space, and then there's less room for the band members to get comfy in the van. So we're all huddled up in one row of seats because the props were so big. And then once you do it, it does start to feel like people expect that sort of a show. And like if we get asked to play a festival or something, it's a bigger stage, more of an incentive to bring the props. But then it's like, we'll get asked to play a show in Canada and we're like, do we fly there and then make the props there? Or like, it just now feels like we can't go back. So I get why bands are so hesitant to bring a bunch of shit like that on tour, for sure.
Looking back, that band that you saw pre-COVID that were just staring at their shoes, it makes sense now. Have you ever thought about doing like a residency or anything like that?
Definitely. I mean, I think Snooper has been such a great thing because I think music in general is it can create such a good platform for artists to branch out from. And I never really before the band felt that that was something I wanted to pursue. But like, yeah, that would be awesome. I think that Snooper's just given me the platform to be able to do that kind of thing. Because before it was like, I'm making this weirdo cardboard stuff. And it never felt that it was like appropriate for a gallery necessarily. So I wasn't out there like trying to get my art in galleries. But it feels like in a live venue where there's chaos going on, it does feel like the perfect place. But I don't know. I would have to think about the exactly perfect sort of residency that would be good for cardboard weirdo outsider art.
So you talked about the video stuff and the visual
Yeah.
stuff. You just put out the new single Guard Dog, and the
Yeah.
video of which is a dream for anyone who likes
So
dogs.
fun.
Literal dogs, dog puppets. There's dogs doing stuff like smoking ciggies, flipping
Yeah, yeah.
pancakes, and shooting guns. How was that shoot with all, the pups and just your creative team? It looked so good putting it all together from
It
behind the
was
scenes.
awesome. It was like the most incredible sync up of creative stuff ever. So I met Joe and the people on the team. They're in LA, but we had played LA on a West Coast tour and it was awesome. It was a great show. And afterwards, some people had made this awesome like puppet video and used a Snooper song and tagged us in it. And anytime anyone does something like that, I'm like, let's go. So I've reached out and connected with them, found out they were in LA, and then just worked out that I was working on some music videos and very blindly was like, I'll just fly out there. We'll just make some stuff. And their work ethic or work style was so similar to mine, where they're like, let's just go for it. So we get in this room. It's Joe who owns all the gear. His house, he lives with like a ton of people, crazy, like right off the bat. And I'm thinking, like, I just flew here, rented a car, did all this stuff to be able to do this, and we have like no plan. And he has like massive amounts of toys and things that he just finds on the side of the road and whatever. So he's like, just find whatever you like. We'll go for it. We knew we had a loose idea about the dogs. And so he'd arranged for some of his friends to bring dogs throughout the week. But like, we got to make all these little sets and fun things to put the dogs in. And it was just so awesome. So the way that the bodies were done, we did the human bodies first, and we would wear like a green morph suit to cover our heads, and we would just get the bodies, doing human things, and then the dogs would come in, and then we would wrap them in some sort of like green blanket and hope that they stayed pretty still just to get like the head action. But it was awesome. And then the next two videos, the next two singles are also going to be done by the same team of people. So I'm really excited.
Do you think there is like a creative relationship there forming by the sounds of it that you do want to progress and
Oh yeah. And we did like three music videos together. We went in being like, maybe we'll just do Guard Dog. We'll see how it goes. And I was there for like 4 days and we did three music videos in that time. And I mean, the way that they work is so fly by the seat of your pants, which I really like. I think that, if you go into creative stuff with too much of a plan, there's more reason to bail on it if it doesn't go the way that you are expecting it to. So that's always been my way of making things, like see what we have available. Like so much of the paper mache too is just like cardboard, paper, like, and sometimes I'll get like a cool box in and I'm like, this is a cool shape. Or this puppet over here with the spiky head, if you can see the yellow
yeah,
guy.
yeah.
I had a bunch of like party hats that were left over from something, so that's what the spikes are. And I feel that like when you make stuff just using what you have around you, you create such a cooler final product. Yeah, Joe and Arias and Kate, who have been on the video team, like they are insane. At one point, he's like, "Oh, I think I have like a jar of like teeth somewhere," and like, why? What do we? And like, I think, got 4 hours worth of footage for each video that we shot and just been like whittling it down, which has been the hard part. But it's never really worked for me going into a video with like a solid plan. And even the video we did for Worldwide, it was like choreographed and obviously like a really different feel, but it was still awesome. Like we went into it being like, we'll see. And that one was scarier because there was a bigger budget. And obviously it was more like choreography and all this stuff that I felt a little bit more uncomfortable with. But like, if you're not having fun while you're making something, then like the audience isn't going to have fun watching it, I don't think. Even like Chat Pile, I've come to really like them because they're funny guys.
Yeah, very,
They're
very.
really
We
funny.
we interviewed the main guy, Reagan, whilst he was like driving in his car,
Oh my God.
and he wasn't like on the phone whilst he
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
driving, it's just like in his cup holder or whatever. He was just hilarious all the way through. I was just
Dude.
howling with laughter. It was great.
He's so funny. And I think like that's a big part of it too, is like when you have a sense of humor, it's gonna show through in some way or another. You can't hide it. So
I imagine it's not so much the case, but you did mention like a bigger budget. Is there ever a fear, because obviously you're with Third Man, is there ever a fear about that sort of stuff where someone might come in and say, we'll do the puppets from now on? I'm sure that would never happen, but you know.
well, I'm actually a very easy person to work with, but the only time I become difficult is like if I don't get to do the art part of it, or like I have come to learn that a lot of bands, like I was saying earlier, that's not as important to them. They do the music, they really care about the music side and like the flyers, the everything. Like I care so much about it because I wasn't a musician before doing this band. Like I've never played music before. So that feels like my contribution. It feels like what gives me confidence as a member of a band. And it was just funny working with them at first because they would be thinking that they were being really helpful and they were like, we like did this video asset for you, or we uploaded this canvas on Spotify video thing. And I'm like, what? And like, you didn't ask me. And I think that there's a shift in general in music right now where more bands are paying more attention to their aesthetic and like the world building kind of aesthetically that goes on around bands. I don't know. I think we're like an extreme case of that. And not that I'm collaborative. I just like, I do want my hands in everything aesthetically. But I do think that there's more of a shift. Like, even I see bands that don't necessarily have a visual element kind of having more of like a graphic design sort of vibe that they go to, whether it be like a scanned, kind of like more analog look to it, or like people are paying more attention to that, I think.
It was a bit of a shock with the Third Man thing anyway, you know,
Yeah,
when that came in, because to us, you were there. I think it was a COVID thing. There were just so many bands that we heard a 7 inch and we were like, these guys are amazing. We'll never see them ever, you know.
totally. Yeah.
So like it was a shock seeing the Third Man thing, but it must be pretty cool just having them back on board for round two, you know.
Totally. You know, Third Man's local to us in Nashville. I've babysat the people's kids that work at Third Man. Like I've been we're all pretty connected in some way. Our first drummer actually worked at Third Man, doesn't anymore. He's moved on to another company, but it feels very local to us. It's funny, you know, when people are like, wow, you signed to Third Man. For us, it's like, yeah, but we can go pick up our records like 10 minutes away. They're so local and they have been very generous in like letting us explore as artists. Like for this record, obviously we went to LA to record with this guy John Congleton who produced the record. And that for us was like really outside of anything we'd ever done because we've only done 8-track recordings at home, then like recorded the last record, which for us felt huge, but like just with a friend at a local recording spot, small recording studio, and then going out to LA for this record was like, oh my God. And sometimes I think we look to Third Man to like reel us in and be like, hey, you're still like hometown, like small guys, but anything that we've wanted to do, they've been super supportive. You know, not even necessarily financially, they have. They're not like pumping us with money by any means, but like if we want to try and make something happen, they've been really excited for us in a way that feels awesome.
That must be such a nice seal of approval as well, just to have that.
Totally. And I mean, like, to be honest, I just went to my first Jack White show like a week ago, and I didn't really know because it's such a different music style. Like, we joke that like we can't tell if Jack White's actually heard our music or if he actually approved us being on the label. Because people are always like, "Whoa, have you met Jack White?" And we're like, "Actually, no." And I wonder what he thinks about Snooper, but it's cool that like Third Man is really inclusive. They have a really great live music venue and they book like any band that's coming through here from anywhere pretty much hits up the Blue Room first because they have great hospitality. The facility itself is awesome. They do a lot of like live recording there, like straight to vinyl, and people like coming to check out the pressing plant, whatnot. And it's just really cool that like Jack White is able to, first of all, he's really political. I don't know if you know much about him, but he's like very outspoken politically. Actually, him and Trump are in a big disagreement right now, and Trump called him like an old, washed up man. I don't know if you saw
It's pot kettle
because
black, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, Jack White like dissed the new decor in the White House or something, and Trump was like, "Fuck this guy." It got really heated. But it's cool that like Jack White is able to like put on a small fry local band that maybe he really doesn't even know what they sound like, but he's like, "Let's do it. Let's support local artists." It's cool.
It would be great. You've mentioned, well, I say it would be great. You've mentioned Jack White. Does he know who Snooper are? It
Yeah.
would be amazing if Trump was like, Snooper are shit,
Yeah, yeah.
these third
Yes.
man bands are shit. It'd be terrible if he knew you were, but it would be pretty nuts as well if you got
Let's
named in a
go.
if you got
Yeah.
named in a press release.
Well, I guess the lore was that Trump tried to use a Jack White song for his inauguration, like walk off, like he tried to walk into Seven Nation Army, I think. Jack White tried to sue him and was like, and this was a whole thing. So now the walkout music for Trump is like terrible. It's like royalty free, like you can't find what artist is attached to the song at all. But yeah, he tried to just like use a Jack White song, and I think Jack did like a cease and desist and then like publicly was like, fuck you to Trump. So pretty
He's done
hilarious.
that quite a lot, hasn't he, Trump? He's kind of got like a DIY mindset on the
Yeah,
quiet. Like he's like, I'm just going to use a Springsteen song, and it's like, no, you're not allowed to do that. And
it's
yeah,
crazy.
maybe
Yeah.
except for the right wing stuff and being, completely abhorrent, maybe he's got the right head
Yeah, yeah,
for the
right. He's like
DIY space.
trying to, yeah, help another band out. It's so funny.
So yeah, I didn't think Trump would ever come up on this podcast, and no way endorsing him, and I'm sure Snooper's not as well. You you mentioned working with your partner, Connor,
Hmm.
and you also mentioned the fact that you'd never really been in a band before. You're coming from that creativity side of things with the art, and Connor's from Once Upon a Time. I read he was like a bit of a guitar for hire locally, and he's like the gnarly guy who can just step in and do music for people. How was that dynamic on top of the fact that, you are in a relationship? How was that coming together during COVID and such?
It was really, I mean, it was great. I think we've always worked really well creatively in our own lanes. Like when Connor has been in other bands, I will say about Connor, like he's a madman with guitar, with instruments and everything, but he doesn't actually like really read music. So he does only like his way about things. Like he's crazy and he can do whatever, but he's very much just like by ear or like by feeling. So when Connor does a project, it's like all in, it's all his, because like it kind of has to be the way that he writes and everything. And he's just like such a creative force in that way. It's been such a pleasure to be able to, like, as his friend, make stuff for his other projects. Like, I have made so many music videos, so many flyers, so many things for his other projects, and never really batted an eye about, like, oh, well, maybe we could combine our projects. Like, we always were just parallel in this really nice way. And then Snooper started really because I was trying to learn how to play drums. Again, really not trying to play drums with him, but like, oh, maybe I'll start my own band or like play with other people. And then just by the nature of like COVID, locking everyone in their houses, I really wanted to play drums. And so I recorded a couple things, and Connor sets up the 8-track and records super analog. So it was super easy for us to do these home recordings at the time. So I did drums on a couple tracks. We sped them up, messed with them. He did guitar, and then immediately I would do a music video. That's kind of like the Snooper ethos is like we do a song piece or music, and then we immediately do art to go along with it. And so it was awesome because it was COVID. So it was like we put out these videos and everyone was stuck in their houses and everyone felt like, oh, well, we can't record with the band because we don't have a studio or this or that. And it was like perfect. We have like all of our home stuff set up, recording studio set up, and like the music video went out into the world at like the perfect time and then kind of just went from there. And then luckily at the time Connor was bartending, so his schedule is like was pretty wacky, and he would get off his bartending shift and then like Australians were like prime time awake at that time, and so we connected with all these Australians over Instagram at the time, which is like there's a lot of Australian bands kind of in our same scene. So Connor would like get off bartending, be chatting with these Australians, like kind of coming down from work, and then all of a sudden he's like, hey, these Australians want to put out a record for us, like a 7 inch. And at the time we were like, but this is just such a weird like internet video project. How will that work? And yeah, Australia, as you know, was like super locked down. Their restrictions were crazy as well. So we put out this record in Australia and actually did like our first big tour after COVID was in Australia. And like had COVID not happened, it just like wouldn't have happened the same way, especially even with like the Australian connection, really.
It's funny as well, isn't it? Like you mentioned the Australian thing, I didn't even think of that connection, but I remember hearing the genre of music that you guys would say you
Yeah.
are is like egg punk.
Uh-huh.
And that's a huge thing in Australia as well, like places
Huge.
like Geelong and stuff like that. So it must be pretty cool to have those connections. And I mean, I don't know if that's the case here as well, but have you had much of that in the way of like the UK and Europe? Because I know there's like Prison Affair in the in
Sure.
Europe and
Actually,
stuff.
I was gonna say not as much, but Prison Affair has been huge for us. Like we adore Prison Affair, and I feel like it's kind of like sister cities, like sister bands. Like when they come to the US, it's like anything we could do to like host them. Or I remember they came to the US. I don't know if it was their first time, but they stayed with us, and we did like a bunch of shows together. We hosted them here, and they returned the same favor when we're over there, and the energy match of us with Prison Affair is like awesome. I feel like we'll be playing shows with them forever, but not as much like in the UK and Europe as we would have liked. I think it's just, I don't know, not that it hasn't existed. I mean, obviously, it's like harder for us to get out to Europe and like it just feels a little bit different, but we've played with some real, every time we go out there, we don't know much about it on the front end, but like the bands that we have played with in Europe have been incredible. We played with one actually recently that I feel the need to shout out. I'm not going to know how to say it. This was in Europe, not the UK, but Foot is how it's spelled. And there's like a female front person and they are awesome. That's the fun part about Europe is not knowing much going into it and being like, wow, these are friends for life. So,
I mean, I know they're an American band as well, and you can stay silent if the show didn't go well. But
yeah.
like just seeing Hotline TNT on that show with you in Manchester,
Yeah.
they were so fucking great. Because like
Yeah.
I like the record, but like that the build up of the sound was so good, and it
Totally.
really set you guys up to follow. It
Yeah.
was so good. So I imagine, yeah, the trade-off can be so good when you get paired with someone so well.
Totally. I guess that's the thing about Europe. When you say that, we so often end up with people from home because we're either like on festivals or like it can be so expensive to just obviously tour casually in Europe that it always feels like it has to be kind of around something specific. And then you'll be at like a festival in the middle of nowhere, Spain, and be like, oh my God, it's Wednesday and MJ Lenderman and all these people that we're so used to seeing here. But it is like more of a surprising element of playing with someone totally random and being like, wow, these are my new best friends. And yeah. But Hotline TNT is another band I would say that like yeah, that show is great. And I think that they, even though they don't have like props and like the things on stage, they do such a good job of like creating a world around their music. That I was thinking about them when I was talking about that earlier, like just visually and like the way that he does like the subscription thing that he does, newsletter or whatever. There's a lot outside of just the music with Hotline TNT that's really cool.
I just thought it was really funny as well, slash visually quite cool. The drummer just walked in through the crowd with like his backpack on and just like he'd just finished school and he just like
Yeah.
climbed on stage because there's no hiding at that basement in Yes, is there? And so like he just climbed on stage and just took his jacket off and started playing. And I just thought from a vibe standpoint that was really funny and just
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Like a church like deacon like parting ways in the crowd. That's so funny. That venue is really funny. I have a hard time remembering exactly where we've been, but I'll never forget that because the subway signal or like something about it was picking up in the amps.
Oh, the
And
train's above, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so like we could hear that through our amps for some reason. And we have a really hard time in Europe because there's a decibel reader like limit. Not necessarily like in the UK as much, but like in certain places we'll be
Is it
like, what?
France?
France is like impossible. And another place that's really hard is Brussels. Like there's just certain places that have it's like 95 decibels, which is like talking in a crowded room, you know? And so that has been a very uniquely challenging thing because obviously, unless we're doing like a support tour and the venues are big, we're playing at these places that feel really great and comfortable for us and they feel full and awesome, but they're like mid-sized venues. So we'll start ch sound checking and then it's just shot. It's such a cultural thing that I cannot explain. Like even the sound people are like, "Oh, we're gonna get tinnitus," and I'm like, "Huh?" Like no one is talking about that in the U.S. Like you just come and you everyone has earplugs. If the music's too loud, it's your fault for coming. You know, like no one considers the volume. Yeah, it's hard because there's five of us and like the nature of the band is really loud and the rest of the band feels really like uncompromising on it a bit because it like does affect the quality of the sound or whatever. So we've had to do crazy things like putting our amps under the stage, faced away. It's nuts.
One thing I do like about those shows, though, we went to see the Minneapolis Uranium Club
Oh
in
yeah, they're the best.
some basement in Bordeaux,
Yeah.
and all the punks upstairs were like giving each other the kiss on the cheek, and we were like, "That's so nice to see." You know, it should be
So
like
fun.
people in Manchester aren't greeting each other with a kiss on the cheek before the hardcore show or whatever.
Yeah.
But you talked of like the basement show at Yes, and then it wasn't long before you were in the main room,
Yeah.
the pink room upstairs, which is even closer to the train tracks, I guess. And you're about to go on tour with the Hives,
Yeah.
like in 2025. That must be mad for you guys to have not only done the jump in those venues in the UK, but to then go like on tour with these guys.
And what all we can think about is like, yes, we don't need to turn the amps down. Like we can play as loud. We're so happy to do it. And I think all of us are very like, obviously there's a teacher in me that's like, I want to follow the rules and we don't want to piss anyone off. But that's like the main thing is feeling like we literally have unlocked this whole level of like, yes, the amps are going to be all the way up. We get to bring all the props on stage. It's going to be awesome. So the funny thing about Europe, though, for me, is that the cardboard boxes that you guys have are small. Like American stuff is so, I don't even know where I'll get a box this big for the like fake amps that we do. And every tour we like we'll have we don't have a tour manager or anything out here, but in Europe we do. And so I'll like hit him up preemptively. I'm like, all right, no, we got to get like the biggest boxes you've ever seen. Like I can special order them. And inevitably they pull them out when we get there and they're like, "Eek." And they're like, this is European XL box. Like, and we're just used to massive American like bullshit. But
When you move house in the UK, it is just like about 100 Diddy boxes. Over there, there's like hundreds of records, and you can only get like
dude,
50 records in or something like that.
it's crazy. I could not find a big box. And I like try and order stuff in advance. And I could not find a big box in the whole country. It was like in the whole continent. It was crazy. So I gotta plan more accordingly. And even like dumpster diving essentially for places where I'm like, okay, do you sell refrigerators? Do you have a giant box? They're like, no. So we'll have to see how that goes on Hives tour. But it does feel really cool. And the Hives seem to be really like genuine supporters of what they like. It can be hard, I think, for a band our size to where we love what we do and we're comfortable playing these like mid-sized venues that feel full to us and like that feels good. For a support tour, it really has to feel right energy wise. And the Hives seem to have like really, because they've asked us a couple times to tour and support tours are hard. Like it's not a ton of money and like it feels like they really have put this effort into making this tour happen with us in a way that's like we're going into it feeling really excited and taken care of. So
That must be, from a personal standpoint, just pretty cool because how many tours go ahead where the main band doesn't even know who?
totally. But it is hard. It's like you don't want to say no, or like you don't want to miss the opportunity to do these things. But then again, you do have to, it's 2025, like in America right now in 20, it's like everything's fucked. And so you want to ask for what you need. Everything just for us here right now feels so expensive. Rent's expensive. Everything feels harsh. And then what happens too is bands have such long tours. Like the Hives are doing so much in on their European tour and they're taking like a 2 week break in the middle. And for us, it's like we can't be out there making support tour money and then take 2 weeks. And our booking agent was so nice to be like, well, we could book headlining stuff, but then you're like for 2 weeks and then I'm gonna be burnt out and then hop back on this support tour. And those are the things about touring that people don't talk about, where it's like, that's hard. So we counter offered and we're like going into it being like, well, we could lose this whole tour with the Hives by asking to just do half. But we asked for half and they said yes. So that was really nice.
The idea of you just having to sit there if the headline tour didn't go ahead and just twiddle your thumbs in
Dude.
some other country.
And it's hard. I think people like it, in bands, you think of these off days as being like this great opportunity to explore a city, and it is, but it's like you don't really know, you're just kind of left off where the other band's taking a break. Yeah, it's hard. And a lot of times with touring, we've come to this place where it's almost easier to play a show, like any show, than have an off day. Because you do start to be like, wait, what am I doing? What? And like you get out of whack on off days sometimes, and like you have to be really intentional with making cool plans, or you just kind of feel like, what am I doing? Like I've stopped to think and I'm like, whoa. So the Hives have been incredible to us in making this like feasible and work for us.
That's refreshing to hear,
Yeah,
having followed obviously the Hives since I was a kid, I'm sure since you were a kid as
totally.
well.
Well, they look like they
Um,
just really want to have a good time. And I read, you'll think this is funny, that Andre 3000 from Outkast wrote the song Hey Ya after seeing the Hives play.
what? Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah. I read it. My partner read it in an interview and I love Andre 3000. So he was like, listen to this. I was like, let's go. We're going to tour with the Hives.
And then hopefully Andre 3000 maybe.
Yeah,
Imagine
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'd be gel with you guys. That's definitely a vibe.
He seems like the nicest guy ever. So,
The new records, you've talked about it a little bit, and I appreciate that we're gonna have to just fit the new record into a tiny
yeah, yeah,
window.
yeah.
But like live show is energy,
Yeah.
and the record is energy too, but it's a different vibe. And this time you were working with a producer rather than just you guys as yourselves. And it's pretty cool as well. I read that he approached you as a fan, John
hmm
Congleton,
hmm
to work with you guys. But how is it and was it putting this new record together
It
compared
was,
to like that live environment?
it was hard. It was really hard. I mean, I think it was really hard because I think it caused like a lot of insecurities for members of the band. Not so much me, but like I have all these other things where I was able to think, okay, if this doesn't go well, we're gonna have like a really cool music video and this and that is kind of like my fallback. But I think with this record, it was just we were able to get the crowd reaction from the last record because those were re-recorded songs. And we were nervous about that one too. We were nervous mostly about the first record being perceived as like, oh, I spent all this money on re-recorded songs, but like it worked out. And we didn't feel as much so like, and there's some re-recorded stuff on this new record, but it was like, it wasn't crowd approved. It wasn't crowd tested before, and so much of our stuff comes from like the energy we receive from the crowd as like that feels like the validation we need to be like, okay, people like this. And I mean, I guess this is the experience that all bands have, right? Like we've done it kind of reverse. But yeah, it's like I think a lot of what Snooper is like we are insecure people. Everyone's insecure and has their things. And like we've been able to make these props and these things to be like, look at these instead of me performing because I'm new at this. And like I don't feel super confident yet. And the first record was also kind of the same thing of like, hey, we know you already like these. And now here they are again. And it feels like a natural growth for us to be doing this record this way and to be working with a producer. But yeah, it's like less control and we obviously can't control as much as we have been able to about like the perception of things, but that's exciting. But it was hard, and John Congleton couldn't have been any better about, I think for us, we really like the demo versions of our songs because we made them and we can create them to this place where we feel confident because they're at home and they're comfortable. And we felt with the first record, like those demo versions were out into the world. So now we're not putting those demo versions out and we're just putting this recorded stuff. And we feel like, I think, John would be like, we'd be in the studio and we are like, it doesn't sound like the demo version, John. Like it sounds different. And he's like, then put out the demos. Like we'd get into it and he'd be like, if you want to put out the demos, put out the demos. But there's like more of a community around Snooper now, which I feel like is reflected by this record with the producer credit and the art. I've branched out more. So it feels like a natural growth in community for us specifically.
It's interesting that thing you said as well, because personally, hearing the singles, hearing Running and the tunes off the EP, and then grabbing a copy of the record
Mhm.
was great in a sense that you were like, oh, great, we've now got the singles on a record. That's perfect. Similar with the first full length that Viagra Boys did, it
Yeah.
was nice to get it on a 12-inch. And similarly with this new stuff, it's great when a band puts out singles, but then to have it appear on a record, it is perfect. But yeah, was that a fear then that, the
Yeah.
fan base might find that a bit of a swizz?
Yeah, and I think we started doing actually like the singles, like Connor and I are both insane people. And so I feel that like when we make something, we really want to put it out right then and there. I think that's like the ethos of Snooper in general is like there's this sense of urgency, there's this sense of like frenetic energy. And it is like very true. It's not really put on in any way. It's like really truly who me and Connor are as people are kind of manic in that way. And I think that, yeah, putting out the singles is like there was no thought put into it. It was literally like, we made this. We're so excited that we literally can't wait. Let's put it out right now. We're gonna upload it at 1:30 in the morning to DistroKid, and then that's that. And so I think maybe like that has been the hardest part is like we don't really care about the way it's perceived as much as like we're sitting on it and like that feels so uncomfortable. And I don't know how other artists do it. How do you just have all this stuff in the canon and then you're just like chill, waiting for it to come out? But it's been a good practice in patience and it's been a good practice in like having to sit with ourselves and be like, wait, no, we do feel good about this. But that's just something we're just really uncomfortable with. And I guess that uncomfortable energy is like, I guess it'll probably like explode on the Hives tour because we're really ready to play these new songs.
So sorry, I can hear my dog in the background barking, so I'm hitting that mute button every time
No,
he
no.
barks. So with the record previously, your debut was pre-existing material, as you've
Yeah,
said. With Worldwide, it's kind of like effectively a debut album. I've read in a press release.
yeah,
Is that pretty cool in a sense that again, what you've touched on before, you're not kind of repackaging. You are saying these are songs that we've worked on whilst we're on the road, and then you're able to kind of push that out there and
yeah.
definitive Snooper in a way.
Totally. It does. And less of them being recorded on the road, it was like very manically kind of like coming home and then when you're on the road, you feel like, I can't wait to get back and record. And then that's just like not the reality when you get back home. You're like, I just want to like get back into my routine, whatever that looks like right now. And so actually like John, we had finished this tour with this band Machine Girl, which was great. We were like at an all-time high. And at the time, like that band, I don't know if you know Machine Girl, but they're like electronic based. Connor, I think, was like a little bit stressed about recording and whatnot. And he was like, I don't know, what the next songs are going to sound like, but we both kind of wanted a little bit more electronic, kind of in the same vein as like Running, kind of feeling like Running is where the last record left off, and then like what's going to come next. And I had bought this drum machine, tiny drum machine, and it had like four preset sounds on it. And so that's what we recorded our whole record off of. We demoed the entire record off of this tiny drum machine that Connor did guitar, like he did guitar over these like little just beats that he made. And then we became really like obsessed with the demo version of like this tiny rickety drum machine. So we're excited to see, the crowd response of these new songs. We have no idea.
It's interesting that like we heard it on an advert recently,
Yeah.
or maybe like late last year, and I
Yeah.
was like, it felt like a secret communication. Like I don't know if you ever remember Ren and Stimpy, there was a thing where like he'd put on like a helmet and he'd be like, "This is the show beyond the show," and like it felt like a secret communication because I was just thinking, no one watching telly knows that's a Snooper song, except for
Yeah.
pockets full of people. And it seems like, your stuff is like tailor-made for like skate vids or video games and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And with the new record, you've got retro online games to
Yeah.
coincide with the new record. Is there anything you've done like that or anything you'd love to do? And
Ooh.
was that whole period with it being like on an advert just a mad thing in itself?
Oh, it was so random. That was so random, but it came out, I think, during the Olympics, actually. And that's when, and so we were really excited. We were like, this ties in beautifully, like the energy of the Olympics with this like random commercial. That was awesome. And then the video game thing, this is like so Snooper verse is like we get all these random people that like latch onto the art in weird ways. Like I connected with the people doing the music videos and whatnot. This kid online, he's an Australian kid, made this video game, tagged us in it. We didn't even see it at first. And then it like I saw it and immediately was like, oh my God, we have to work together in other capacities. I don't know if it's a boy, girl, what age they are, but they're like so fun to chat with on Instagram. I feel like they're probably like just fresh out of high school, is my interpretation. But like connecting with people in that way is so cool. And it's opened up my eyes to being like, I would love to take some of the characters that Snooper has, incorporated into their world and like turn them into like more video game stuff or like be able to do like I don't know, more stuff outside of music. That video game thing to me was like the most exciting thing. I was like, I want to do a whole Snooperverse video game and like, I don't know. I see I would love to make more like I get nervous about doing like plushies and like action figure type stuff and making it too gimmicky, but I'm willing to lean into that more so if like people are responsive to that kind of thing.
Turnstile put out that teddy bear, and that seemed to be,
Yeah.
you
It's
know,
crazy. Music is so cool right now. I feel like so many bands are doing more stuff like that. I actually have that turnstile plushie. It's very sick. And I'm not really like a plushie or like stuffed animal person, weirdly,
no.
but I would also love to do more like compilation. Like I would love to do like a VHS with like all of our stuff. I really like Devo, of course, and like the way that there's so many collector item things that you can like go through the whole history of Devo and be like, oh, this is from that era or this is from this era. And I think when I look at Snooper, the next record is going to be more so like a whole new era. With the first record, it was definitely more kind of like cartoon. Everything was like a little bit more rounder edges and like colorful. And then now we have like these big speaker props. They have like fog machines in them, and there's like a darker feel to everything. Like I have this silver puppet that's kind of more serious feelings. So I look at this next record as like a bit of a darker era for Snooper in general, visually, everything wise. And then hopefully, like the next record, we can kind of find as we go into that era what that's going to look like. But I would love if people could like look back on Snooper and be able to identify certain times in the band by being like, oh, they had this visual thing out. They must have been in their like dark era or whatever. Would be fun.
I can envision if it was in the 80s, there'd be like a cartoon or something like that to go alongside it. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And I love, I mean, like working with people that come out of the woodworks like online. I think if you give people stuff to latch on to, if you give the characters, you give the visual stuff, people latch on to that. And I get so many like hand-drawn notes with like our characters and stuff it shows. And that's like really cool to me. I love when people will hit me up and they're like, "Are you okay if we use this, like the bug for this or that?" And I'm like, "Please, that's like the best part of doing all this." Or people get like tattoos and stuff and they're so proud they like, "Look, I got the bug tattooed or whatever." And that's what it's all about.